Another episode of Next Up with Wine Now. We out here with Mr. Dirty Harry. How you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. A little tired, but definitely feeling good.
Love it, love it. So walk us through your day so far. I know you've been in the studio since about 12 p.m. making hits per usual. How's that been going?
It's been going good, man. Definitely a good day so far. Got hit up by my man to send some loops out, so I went through kind of the loop catalog, got him a bunch of stuff out, and then we've been kind of just cooking, just to cook, just to be creative, and not, because a lot of times we're working, it's like, oh, we're, submitting to a specific artist, so it's very like studying and trying to figure out where that artist might want to go and what they're, where they're at in their life and stuff. But some days you come in and you're like, I just want to kind of have like an escape with music, so just going off stuff that I'm feeling and wanted to vibe off of today. And it turned out really good, man. Track really came together. Oh, and in between that, I have had another writing session with these two other writers, but they had to bounce a little early, so that was also a good session.
So being a producer in Philadelphia, I know it's definitely it's very enriching, very successful, a lot of different things. Talk to us about that. How is it being just being as an experience working in Philadelphia, etc.?
Man, Philly is a great music town for sure. It's an interesting place. I think most people who are from Philly or have grown up in Philly, like, I don't know, for some reason everyone I know from Philly like automatically thinks they're a superstar, like has like a huge superstar ego. Everybody here raps, everybody here sings, everybody makes beats or knows somebody who does. And the competition's very high, but at the same time there's just so much wealth and history of like incredible talent, especially in the jazz, R&B, neo soul, rap world. I mean, Philly is like 70% black city, so the history of just like black music in Philly is super, super deep, and it's great. I love it here actually. A lot of the talent when I travel, either if it's people playing in Beyonce's band or writers and producers writing some of the biggest hits, a lot of times they're from Philly or South Jersey, a ton from Willingboro for some reason, New Jersey. And it's amazing. I'm like a big, proud, Philly guy. And I'm big on like building infrastructure here as well. And, just basically giving a place of resources for up-and-coming artists, singers, and producers to work out of.
So you won your first Grammy at a very young age. Talk to me about that. I know it definitely didn't humble you.
It definitely did not. The funny thing about winning the Grammy, though, is like I was so... even part of the reason that I have the name Dirty Harry is I was obsessive. Excuse me, let me restart that.
You're good.
So, winning the Grammy was interesting. I was so obsessive at the time, working in the studio, sleeping in the studio. That's part of the reason I got the name Dirty Harry's, because I would literally be 16, 17, sleeping on the studio every night and like smelling. Yeah. So the dudes who I came up under called, nicknamed me Dirty Harry as a joke. But I didn't even know that the album I had worked on for Ludacris had won a Grammy. I was working in the studio. It didn't actually mean anything to me at the time until people said it did. I didn't give a fuck about Grammys at that point. I came from like an underground hip hop thing and kind of got thrust into this mainstream music world, which is why later on I kind of rebelled against that and started a band, because I felt like artistically I wasn't fulfilling my reason for being here. And now I like both. You know what I mean? I like the artistic, but I also want to be in the the mainstream. I like that. I like many people hearing the music that I work on. But yeah, it didn't really mean that much to me at the time. It definitely helped my parents because I had dropped out of high school. So them seeing like names on albums that they can buy in stores and seeing me make money, and obviously seeing the Grammy was very helpful. To believing like, oh, he's not just insane and lying. You know what I mean? Because that was probably a thought for a while.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I hope to win more in the future, but again, it's not like the end all be all. And when you understand how the Grammys like actually work, it's like less interesting. But it helps, you know what I mean? It helps get you in certain rooms, sell beats for more money, that kind of stuff.
So when it comes to music, I feel like artists and rappers just think it's about going into the studio and making, like, having a beat and making the track. But what really goes into making a good song, you know? I feel like it's like a kid. Like, it takes a whole tribe of people to raise one. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like replicating that into the music industry is very interesting. Talk to us about that.
Most definitely. I think after being in the game for a while, my like kind of philosophy about that is like, if it's not a big yes, then it's a no. Because a lot of times you're trying to like put yourself in a position of like, all right, I'm trying to sell this piece of music. Let me pretend, you know, I'm the A&R at Jive. How am I going to think? And like, sometimes I think that can be useful, but at the same time, I think recently I've been more on like, does it move me? If it's moving me, chances are it's probably going to move somebody else. And, you know, and even if it doesn't move me and it gets placed, which happens occasionally, I'm never really super happy with those. I'm never really super proud and feel good about those. So for me, I'd rather make music that speaks to my soul and that inspires me. And yeah, I mean, it's a big process. And I think another thing is like collaboration is so key. Having good people that can do what you can't do. For some reason, you know, the word producer has been changed over the years. Like, a producer was more like a movie director back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even 80s. And those are some of my favorite records that were ever made. It was more like, at a certain point, it switched over to where the producer had to like do everything, play the keys and the bass and guitar. And you know, I think it's really nice to be able to be like, oh, I know this guy who's a really great, you know, acoustic guitar player that would be great for this folk album. I mean, being a producer is kind of like being a chef, so it's all about your ingredients. And even Philly had like the best example of this to me, besides Motown. You know, with Philly International, they just had these incredible musicians and songwriters that they could pick and choose from. And I think that's I want to bring that back more and more, working with musicians, working with people's strengths. And at the end of the day, the producer should sort of be like a tastemaker and an editor, like a really great editor, like a movie director would be, and try to kind of make something that moves people.
Infrastructure, you talk about building stuff. So where are we right now? Please tell everybody like what studio we're at right now.
So right now we're at Breed Studio, and the production company here is called Sacred. So that's our pretty newly founded production company. Basically me and the studio's owner Mason got together about 9-10 months ago to work on this new exciting artist project, and the chemistry was just kind of undeniable. I had another studio not far from here at this place called D Street, which is this huge, crazy factory, but it just made sense for me to come over here. And you know, me and Mason have a lot of similar philosophies about music and what we're trying to build here, and yeah, so it's been going really great for the last 8 or 9 months. Things have been happening very quickly.
Millennials to the Generation Z, what do you think is the biggest difference in the music industry?
Well, there's a lot of different differences. There's a lot of different differences.
There's a distinct one.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences for sure from my generation to the younger generation. One, like, there's less gatekeepers. So in my generation, unless you were signed, chances are people weren't really going to hear your music. Maybe you would sell a mixtape on the street and people would check your stuff out, but you know, I'm actually like pre-internet, post-internet kind of generation. I'm like the one generation that was on the edge, which is a kind of an exciting thing. So I remember MySpace coming out. I remember YouTube when it dropped, and it was like this incredible thing. You know, the negative side of that is the oversaturation now of like how much music is released. But I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think it's pretty exciting that you can just record a song in your house and figure out how to market it and do guerrilla marketing, and like all that to me is kind of exciting, because literally it was like either you're on a major label or an indie label, and that was it. You know what I mean? Or people weren't really hearing you. Maybe people would hear you sing at a bar and be like, yo, I heard this person once, that was incredible. So that's a big difference. And also just the stuff that's like, you know, as you get older, the people kind of rehash stuff. It's like I talk to younger like rappers, and I'll be like, yeah, you know, like Q-Tip, and they'll be like, I don't know who that is. I'll be like, Tupac, and they're like, oh. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not even on their radar. And I actually think that's an exciting thing. Like, the other time I can say when that happened in music is like when punk came out in the 70s. It was like you had all the old guard of all these rock bands like the Beatles and Rolling Stones, and then punk came out, and it was like fuck the Beatles, fuck the Rolling Stones. Like, they literally said that, and people were like, oh, you can't say that. You know what I mean? And that was sort of the similar thing with, like, you know, the little Uzi Verts of the world, or the Playboy Cardis, or, you know, even like the little Zans being like, I don't like Tupac, his music's boring. And like the old heads would be like, you can't say that. And they'd be like, yes, I can. You know what I mean? I like that rebelliousness, whether I agree with that statement or not. Obviously, Pac is incredible, but I like that. I definitely see like a line between that and like the new stuff that people are doing, punk, that energy, you know.
So you've had the opportunity to work with many legends such as Beanie Sigel, Kelly Clarkson, but what's one that really sticks to you as memorable? One that really, like, you think really paved the way for everything else?
Paved the way would be, you know, maybe hard to say. There was definitely just working under the producers I was working under, who were just amazing. Dre and Vidal was really cool, and watching them mix some like amazing records actually in this room was pretty amazing. But watching people come up to like Miguel, the singer, he was a songwriter. I think he had just signed to Jive when I met him. Was not a superstar, super humble dude, super talented. Would like, you know, hung out for like 2 weeks at the studio, and then, you know, watching his ascension into superstardom was pretty, you know, rad to see. Same with BJ, the Chicago kid. He was another writer who was at our studio all the time, and this other guy, Deputy, who was he produced like Bitch Better Have My Money for Rihanna. So there was a lot of like young, talented people on the come up, which is exciting. The artist I definitely got closest to out of everybody was definitely Beanie Sigel, though. I mean, the person I spent the most time with out of all those artists, for sure.
So you being here, what's your biggest pet peeve when it comes to creating music?
I think my biggest pet peeve is the whole music industry. The whole business aspect of it is really strange, bewildering. The ups and downs of the music industry. One day you feel like you're king of the world. The next day you feel like a bum. That's kind of how the music industry treats you. And if you can't, a lot of people who are artistic are not necessarily the most, you know, sane, stoic, emotionally in control people. So the ups and downs I've seen just destroy people. You know, it can be a really tough industry. A lot of times it's very smoke and mirrors. People think people have a lot more money than they do. It can take a really long time to get paid in this industry. Like, you can be a songwriter and have a hit record with Rihanna, and unless you do a pub deal, you know, it can take months, if not years, to get paid. So you could be working at Walmart with a #1 record, and it takes a while to get paid. So they kind of, and producers, we get upfront money, we get, you know, an upfront production fee, but songwriters don't get any of that. So, you know, you could write a #1 record, and it could take, you know, a year and a half for you to get paid, unless you do a pub deal. So they kind of force a lot of people into that, which is, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, it just is what it is.
Do you think the music industry is built for young artists and young creators to fail?
I don't know about fail, but it's an exploitive industry, so, which I never got. I don't understand, just personally, you know, why you'd want to rip somebody off who's talented. Because if they're talented and you're ripping them off for a small piece of the pie, that person could go on to be Michael Jackson. And then you're the guy who ripped off Michael Jackson instead of the guy who discovered and, you know, helped nourish and, you know, create a superstar. So to me, it's just like, are you in a state of like abundance, or are you a state of like scarcity? And that's like one of the toughest things about the music industry, is just constantly kind of being in a state of abundance of, I don't have to be in competition with this producer because there's more than enough to go around. And comparing music is just it's a strange thing anyway, you know what I mean? Being competitive with it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
So a follow-up question, do you think there's a lot of ego put into place when it comes to being a manager, being even an artist in the music industry?
Oh yeah, I think. Well, number one, I think you have to have an ego to want to be in the arts. Period. I mean, if not, you can always just make a painting in your backyard. But if once the music meets the music business, ego is automatically kind of involved because you're trading money for art. So yeah, there's tons of egos, and I try to kill my ego as much as possible. I definitely have a big ego, and at different times in my career I've had really, really big ego. But I always say this, my ego is not my amigo. It doesn't do me any favors, because it's led me to some painful places as well. So I try to kill my ego. There's definitely been many situations where I'm in a studio session and the artist's, entourage thinks I'm like the engineer or the intern, and then someone treats you a certain way, and then they found out that you made this beat or you did this, and then they treat you another way, and that kind of stuff always makes me laugh. I've even had things where I've made the track with somebody, I've sent it to somebody and they didn't like it, and then the producer I did the track with, who's a big producer, played the track for the person. They loved it because it's smoke and mirrors, and I'm not mad at that. That doesn't even make me mad. It just kind of shows me what type of person you are. And I go from there, basically.
Amazing. So I know you have family, your wife and kids and everything. Talk to us about how important family is for you.
Family is everything, because again, like the smoke and mirrors of this business, like at the end of the day, people don't, even when they care about you, like they don't really care about you a lot of times. They care what they can get from you and what clout. And I'm sorry to say, but it's just not that I don't have a lot of very close friends in the music industry. I do, but I know that my wife and kids and family, they don't care if I ever sell another beat. They don't care if every song I write is shitty. They're there for me, and I think that's a really important thing that I would stress to people, because it's really difficult to have a family and be successful in this business as well. The business definitely pulls you away from family a lot. Not just, from traveling, you know what I mean? Spiritually and emotionally as well, so.
What you have working in this industry, so what's one of the wildest experiences you had being a producer, the game, or even be on tour?
The tour stuff is a whole other...
Yeah, I know, we don't want to touch on that.
Yeah, the tour stuff is a whole other part of wildness. I mean, everything from, sex, drugs, and rock and roll that you could kind of imagine. A lot of funny stuff. This is more funny, it's not even so crazy, but we used to we were heavy on pranks. We were big prankers. And I guess because we were so young, we got away with a lot of shit. But we would have if anybody fell asleep in the studio, and there was a lot of gangsters around the studio at the time, so we would have entourage of a famous rapper fall asleep, on the couch, and we would videotape and take drums and fucking go crazy with the drums and wake up. These dudes probably had PTSD, waking up thinking that they're getting shot at, and we definitely could have, got our asses beat a few times or stuff like that. But man, it was so fun. We had this one songwriter, Script, who actually wrote the Chris Brown record, and he fell asleep in the couch with his his arms were in his t-shirt, and we rigged it up so these big speakers would blast heavy metal at ear-shattering volume while we filmed it. And he wakes up, it's like Armageddon, and he's trying to get his arms out of his shirt, but he can't. Dude, that was, we watched that thing 1,000 times. That was a really funny experience. But so much stuff, so much. I mean, we still have so much fun. It's definitely my wife gets jealous sometimes because she sees just how much we goof around, and it doesn't look like work in the typical fashion. But that's part of it, making fun of each other, being goofy, writing fake songs even when you're writing a real song. I always take the lyrics and put different lyrics so I'm just messing around. I don't know why. It all just kind of helps the creative process.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So yeah, what advice do you have to the upcoming generation that want to be in your position one day?
The advice is be obsessive. The advice is, if you want to make a living at it, work as hard as making a living before you're seeing money from it. Be obsessive. I have a thing where I work every day on music. It might be 1 hour. 1 to 3 hours is usually my sweet spot. If I try not to do like 20-hour days or 13-hour days, although they happen. I would rather do a 3, 4, 5 hour day and then wake up and do a 2 hour day the next day, because I find that if I do too many hours in one thing, I get diminishing returns. But anyway, that's just sort of a philosophy. But I'm consistent when I'm sick. The only day I haven't made music in the last 3 years is when my son was born in the hospital.
Wow.
And when we got home from the hospital, I was making a beat that night. Wow. So I gotta remember what beat that is. It's probably a banger. But nothing like that new baby energy to put a shoe in your ass. So, but yeah, man, I would say be consistent, be humble. Manifestation is huge. You gotta believe. I've been on that heavy recently. Just like, even feeling like, what does a #1 record feel like? And then feeling that in my gut, and then just walking around with that energy all day. All right, I already have the feeling of what a #1 record, feels like. Now I just gotta go get one. And even if I don't get one, I still just got that feeling. So, manifestation's big. If you can see it, and I've always been in my whole career, it's like, you see that person, don't be afraid. Just be like, yo, can I play you some beats? Can I play you my demo? You never know what's gonna lead to where. And be kind and be a good person. Try to be a gentleman or a lady. You know what I'm saying? Like, because when you're an asshole, people remember that, and people don't want to be around assholes. And it'll give you a longer career if you're just like a cool person that people like spending time with. So that's huge as well. Sweet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.